Audiobooks New Zealand presents this unabridged reading of A Good Keen Man by Barry Crump, read by Martin Crump. Chapter 1. I Become a Deer Colour. Trevor trod heavily about the hut in unlaced boots, building a fire and swinging the first tea billy of the day. While he waited for it to boil, he stood in the hut doorway, yawning misty breaths and watching the light sifting down the valley, through the dark bush and across the open river flats. I sat up in the bunk and looked through the window as the night dissolved into a morning that had not yet decided to be fine. My pup Flynn looked in to make sure I was still there. A burning mug of strong tea was shoved at me, followed by a slab of bread smeared with golden syrup and the black prints of Trevor's unwashed hands. When we'd eaten, Stan and Pat showed signs of moving, so I swung my legs over the edge of the bunk, peeled off my sleeping bag, and started uncertainly on my first day as a deer colour. Outside, Stan showed me a few of the landmarks and drew maps on the ground with a stick that kept breaking. The landmarks might have been useful if I'd been able to remember what he said about their relation to the river, but the maps had me properly bluffed. I kept nodding and saying yes, yes, hell, oh yes, does it, yes, until his map brought him up against the side of the hut with only 3 inches of stick left. You get that, he asked. Yes, I lied, staring helplessly at what looked like an excellent likeness of a grove of supplejack. You can't get bushed if you watch the ridge system of the watershed and don't panic when you miss your direction, he said. If you follow water, you must come out somewhere within 2 or 3 days. It was the only piece of his advice I remembered or needed to remember. By the time we left camp, the light was strong and the others said it was too late to catch the early morning deer. But I wasn't going to be put off by that. I loaded my new .303 and almost ran up the riverbed, with enough ammunition to conduct a minor war rattling in a sugar bag on my back. Flynn whined about being left behind, but I wasn't having a noisy pup spoiling my chances. Turning up a side creek, I slowed a bit and sneaked along, wondering what a real deer looked like and what I was going to do if I saw one. In the creek bed there was plenty of tracks, but the deer appeared to have climbed into the bush that grew steeply on either side. I crept forward, cursing myself every time I rustled a leaf, rattled a stone, or splashed too loudly in the water. The silence of the bush gradually made itself felt, and when a pigeon shirred up out of a coniny, I almost dropped my rifle. The sling swivel squeaked, so I padded along, holding it tight with my free hand. Stones rattled loose in the bush above me, and I spun around, but my foot slipped on a wet log, and I sat heavily in the creek. Frantic, I worked the bolt out of my wet rifle and scrambled to my feet. A skinny old sow trotted out of the crown fern above me on the far side of the creek. She looked briefly in my direction and trotted away round the corner. I rolled myself.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?